Hello, Sanbonani, Ninjani, Moroi Makadi. I think those are some of the languages that I can speak for now. But anyway, thank you for watching this second edition of a series of talks by Canon Collins scholars about the Canon Collins Scholarship, their experiences, and how they ended up being Canon Collins scholars. So if you're lucky, you might actually get tips on how to apply for the scholarship. So this is a video you must watch. My name is Tony Manyangadze. I'm a current Canon Collins scholar. I'm also a media practitioner. I'm a journalist. I'm a public relations practitioner as well. I've got so many stories to tell about myself, about my experiences. But today, unfortunately, you will not be hearing my story. But fortunately, you will be hearing a story of one of my colleague and compatriots, Clayton Moyo. So welcome, Clayton. Thank you for making time to have a chat with us today. I've read some of your work, and I actually I've been following you on social media, so I know a bit about you. But I'm sure our viewers, some of them are not familiar with you. So who is Clayton?
That's a difficult question, but the long and short is that I'm a media educator. Primarily, I teach journalism and media studies at the National University of Science and Technology in Bulawayo, Zim. I teach broadcast media and of course, media theory. And I'm also a digital skills media trainer. This is the work that I do, especially outside the university. I've also worked as a journalist some years back. I was working for an organization called Radio Dialogue, and this is where I picked the digital skills because at the time we were working in a rather constrained legal environment when it comes to broadcast media. Well, it still is actually, because what you have right now is a lot of radio stations, so much entertainment, but in terms of public interest stories, still the same stories. I know because I have done media monitoring for certain organizations. So I've listened to bulletins and it's the same thing. So at Radio Dialogue, what we were doing was to explore the digital platforms, particularly to link with our audience, because we didn't have much space to maneuver around reaching out to our audiences. That's how I was introduced to digital media production. And yeah, since then, I've also managed to meet international media trainers. I think I'm quite lucky because I've worked with them and they have taught me the digital media skills as well as delivering those skills to other people, which is, like I've been taught to train. And I've been transferring those skills outside university into the university and picking things from the university to the people I work with outside the university. So there's been that two-way transfer of skills. I think that's who I am: digital media skills trainer and media educator.
That's really brilliant. As a journalist myself, I actually relate to your story, and in as far as digital skills training, I think I'll
of course.
And then we just we take it out from there. Maybe you can give me a hint or two. Yeah, I think
great.
I would really benefit from that as well. And I understand you're currently doing your PhD, and the journey, in as far as your academic journey, has not been short. It has been long. So in a way, I don't know, would you mind just sharing your academic journey from where you started maybe and how you go to where you are now?
I won't start from grade 1, but I'll start from my honors. It's been a bit longish, but pretty straightforward for me. I graduated, or I did my my honors at the National University of Science and Technology. I have a journalism and media studies honors. And then from there, I worked as a journalist briefly. After graduating, I rejoined the university as a teaching assistant back then. That's when I did my master's, again in journalism and media studies, but I did it concurrently with a postgraduate diploma in higher education. And so that makes me a certified teacher, so to speak, or educator. Then after master's, I did my, I then took the position of broadcast media professional instructor at that same university, then later switching on to lectureship, which is what I'm doing right now. Then in 2020, that's when I commenced my PhD studies. So yeah, that's how I got to where I am. I'm at the University of the Witwatersrand. I can't get my tongue around that Afrikaans word, but it's Wits University, as we call it.
Yeah, it's a very prestigious university. I know a lot of people from there are like, yeah. So it really is awesome. It really is awesome. So I'm sure you are a Canon Collins scholarship recipient. Would you just like to tell us how that came about?
So I have a bit of a long story again with Canon Collins. I applied for the scholarship some time back, must have been 2013, when I wanted to pursue my master's. And where? At Wits. I then got through the first round at Canon Collins, but I was rejected by Wits because at the time I wanted to do the master's in journalism and media studies, but master's in journalism. But they said I didn't have enough postgraduate experience because you had to work as a journalist for them to consider you. You had to have about 2 or so years of experience as a journalist after your first degree. So they said I don't have much experience, which is okay. I mean, look now, I'm back at Wits. But I had to go back to Canon Collins after I got through that first round. I had to go back to them and say, oh no, I didn't secure the place at the university. So yeah, and then now I can't even remember how I got to know of Canon Collins, but perhaps it's because there are people whom I already knew at the time who were Canon Collins scholars. And then I tried my luck again in 2019 when it was time to go back to go for my PhD. And yeah, I succeeded. Did my master's at NAST, and well, I did well there. I did well there. It was a chain of distinctions and prizes, which means money. So it wasn't all bad. Yeah.
Oh, that really is brilliant. So I'm sure you now have like a lot of tips. Do you have like a tip or two to share to? I'm sure there are some people who are watching and will be wondering how to apply and how to become a scholar. So when you're applying, what was your experience? What are some of the tips that you can share with our viewers out there?
I'll talk about the Canon Collins application process, what they value, as I understand it, as someone who's applied and made it. I think community service is important to Canon Collins. That aspect of community service, you need to be clear about the community work that you have done. You need to outline your activities, the activities that you've done in the community, because this is one of the things that they really value. And you also need to select your course and the university that you intend to go to. And this can't be random, obviously, and you can't just do it for the sake of the application process. You need to think through it and justify why you are picking up this course and why at that university that you have selected. So you can't be random about that. And for MSc, you need to be clear about your research interests, because and how you intend to pursue to go about that research. For PhD, it's obviously straightforward, because when you are already applying for the scholarship, you have your research proposal ready, and the research proposal for PhD has that justification or rationale component, which is what should come out. Again, you also need to be clear in the application process what your research is about and why you are doing this research. Why is this research important? Again, your plans, your future long and short-term plans, again, they need to be ordered in your application process. And this is also about how you're going to serve your community and what sort of impact you think your either your activism or your community service work, what sort of impact is going to have in the community. That is also important. You need to outline those and stick to what is possible. You don't want to claim that you'll be doing the sort of work that is done by the UNDP. No, you tell them stuff that is already related to what you do. In my case, I know that I'm a digital skills trainer, digital media skills trainer, and this is what I outlined because I did it before the application. This is the kind of work that I was doing before applying. It's the work that I'm doing even right now during my course of study. And I know that even after I finish my studies, I am going to be doing that. And even if I were to leave academia, I would still do it because I'm in a position to do it. So you stick to the things that you are already familiar with, things that you do something or things that you're passionate about.
Agree with you there. In as far as applying for the Canon Collins Scholarship, I think it is important for you to have something that you are doing for the community, not just for yourself. I know most people are focusing on their academics. It's okay, and actually agree with that. But then, as an academic, as a person who is part of a community, you're supposed to give back, one way or the other. So, in as far as doing something for the community is concerned, I actually totally agree with you there. And I'm actually interested in your initiative. You training people around the media in Zim. It really is important because there's that gap, especially when it comes to to digital skills, to media skills. So I really appreciate and applaud you for that. But an initiative that you're currently doing. Apart from...
I can expand on it.
Please expand.
I work with media training organizations in Bulawayo, even in Harare. I've gone as far as Harare, but mostly in Bulawayo. So what I do is we work particularly with citizen journalists, people who don't have much access to these professional training institutions, but they need the skills. And I mentor some of these young journalists in pursuing journalistic work. And mostly mobile video training or mobile video production, fact checking and verification, use of open source intelligence for research and investigative journalism work. I'm now moving into media literacy, which is going to take me, outside the usual journalists that I work with, to the community itself, to people who actually are who actually read these stories, who view the stories on WhatsApp. I think that's where I'm going to. And I mean, on what I've been doing already, it's quite fulfilling, Tony, to see the young journalists implementing some of the skills that they pick from the activities that they do and doing pretty well. I think that's the most rewarding part about what I've been doing so far.
I've been working in Zim. I think I worked in Zim for about 3-4 years before I came to do my master's here in SA. And I've had a couple of interns working under me, and I've actually see that there is actually a need for such. And the work that you're doing with young journalists is really amazing. And in as far as the other project that you mentioned about going to the communities and talking to the communities about fact checking, about how to read and understand and analyze media content. I think it's important, especially given the fact that these days there's a lot of fake news that is being circulated on WhatsApp. So I think there is now a need for people who are in journalism, people with media training, to go and then educate people the ordinary consumer, so to speak, because the media that they are consuming today is not all of it is from journalists. Some of it is, from people who are not even trained. So I think it is important now to sort of kind of, educate people around how to, to fact check, around how to understand and to analyze media content. So that's
Yes,
really
exactly.
is brilliant.
I think it's also a timely intervention, especially at this time when there's so much fake news going around, and we see the consequences of such things. We have a vaccination program that's ongoing, and you have all these stories flying around, fake news around vaccines, and you now have people who are called anti-vaxxers or something of the sort. And trust me, it's not something that is light. When someone is not sure because of the fear, the anxieties around COVID, and then you have all these irresponsible sorts of stories streaming through people's WhatsApp, it really has an impact, and people need to be aware of what really is a genuine story and what is just a rumor which has no foundation whatsoever. I think this is what we need at this point. We really need journalism, all professional journalists, to have that link with the community outside writing stories, but in the process of reading stories. That is very important.
And you have also written a story that was published in the Mail and Guardian. I think you're actually the second winner of the essay competition that is being run by the Canon Collins scholarship team. So
yes.
just elaborate on that. How did that article?
It's as you say, it's the essay writing competition in celebration of Canon Collins Trust's 40th anniversary, and it's themed "Troubling Power." And these are essays that are meant to bring about narratives that advocate for an open society, open and just society, especially in Southern Africa. And so I penned this article on queer precarity and livable spaces in South Africa and in my home country, Zimbabwe. So I'm reflecting in that essay. I am reflecting on the recent events in South Africa where gay, lesbian, and transgender people are subjected to violence, and really it's gruesome, and it keeps happening. There doesn't seem to be much effort, especially from leadership, to address that challenge. You rarely hear people who should speak, you rarely hear them speaking about it. And in that essay, I am challenging that you can't have that. And then I also reflect on my experiences as a journalist in Zimbabwe at the time of the constitution making process. I think that was 2010 to 2013. I covered that process a lot. And really, I think that was an opportunity for people to come out and say, going forward in Zimbabwe, we want an open and inclusive society. But you had a complete opposite, where people were really racing towards bashing sexual minorities. You had so much acerbic talk around homosexuals in Zimbabwe. And I in the essay, I'm exploring the normalization of homophobia. I'm saying this is the most weird part about my country. You can't really normalize hatred. You can't say this minority group, we can't allow them to exist when they're already there. I think that's the angry part about my essay. But then I then explore what I call, I'm not the one who calls them livable spaces. It's other academics who have already conceptualized livable spaces. And this is about the creativity of queer people in building their own communities where they affirm each other, and also where they navigate these hostilities to establish spaces beyond the suffering that they are subjected to. I'm saying, much as there is all this hostility, there is also love among queer people, celebrations, there are small wins, big wins, and they also support each other through these hardships. And I think this element of my essay, I'm not done with it. I don't think I explored much of that aspect. That's because the angry part took most of the of the space. And when I wanted to write about this positive affirmation, I looked at the length of the essay. I was like, oh, okay, I've just took so much space. But I can say it's work in progress. It's something that I am going to write more about. It may not appear as an essay in future, perhaps an academic paper, I don't know. A podcast, but it is work in progress. It's something that I will explore further.
I still work in a way for an organization that deals with, issues to do with, minorities, people with disabilities, women, children, girls, and the LGBTQI community as well. So, and I understand from a media perspective, the media is really not paid much attention to such issues. Do you want to elaborate on that? Why do you think that is?
When it comes to the media not paying attention to those issues, firstly is prejudice, right? Prejudice is a bit stubborn. People have their worldviews about how things are supposed to be, but that there are some people who live different lives is something that people are not ready to accept, and you see that reflected in the media narratives. So they are oblivious of the struggles of queer people living with disabilities. And again, when it comes to the media, at times it's a straightforward issue. Media tends to be in service of political and business interests. What then exists outside that is not a concern. Even institutionally, it's not something they are ready to deal with. And again, I'll also speak of journalists themselves, that they are cultured in certain dominant ways, which is why they won't see some of these challenges because they are not affected. And that's how privilege works, by the way. When it comes to privilege, if it doesn't affect me, then it doesn't exist. If it's not my problem, then it is not a problem. So you find it in journalistic practice that at times journalists tend to ignore these issues because they are not directly affected by those issues. And I think that's the challenge that journalism is facing. If journalists are to start imagining an inclusive society in Zimbabwe and beyond Zimbabwe, then we may have journalism that pursues social justice ideals.
In your article, you spoke about how things are bad in Zim as far as the media is concerned. You said, in my country, Zimbabwe, the bar is way too low. There is no bar at all, in as far as social justice issues are concerned, especially in the media. That's a powerful statement, honestly. And I don't know, do you have anything to elaborate on that? It's such a powerful statement for us not to just talk about it. The bar is not even there.
I was reflecting on the collective failure among Zimbabweans to envision an inclusive society. I'm saying beyond the dominant powers within the Zimbabwean polity, there is culpability, by members of the broader society. I'm saying you have these problems of misogyny, you have sexism, you have ableism, you have homophobia, all these things. This sort of, and you also have, the bigger problem, ethnic discrimination in Zimbabwe. I'm saying these are things that are there in our society. And much as we like to blame, the mainstream politicians, we need to look at ourselves, because we are also responsible for these things. We are responsible for creating a community that pushes other people to the margins. I'm saying this is, a collective thing that we shouldn't look at politicians and say, you guys are the ones who are bad in this. No, even us, we need to reflect on the role that we play. So I'm saying, these are community problems. They are more than political. But then again, Tony, no situation is permanent. I'd like to acknowledge that there are actually a lot of people in Zimbabwe who are trying to, build an inclusive society, and they are confronting these social problems. And as long as there are people who envision an inclusive society in our country, I think the path is obviously, we are on a slow lane, excruciatingly slow lane, but we are moving there. We can't lose hope. That's the message that that I try to put across, that there is a way forward, much as the situation is bad.
Wow, that really is so profound, and I actually agree. I think it's a collective effort that is now needed for us to actually transform and change our society. So, in as far as in as much as we try and blame other people, this is because of that person or that person, I think we need to start asking ourselves as individuals first, what are we doing about it? It doesn't necessarily have to come to a group to make a decision. I think a group is made of individuals. So as an individual, ask yourself, what am I doing about this? And change starts from there, and then it grows. So I think, you make a very, very pertinent point there. Wow, thank you so much, Clayton, for allowing us into your space, for sharing your experiences as a scholar, as a journalist, and also for the work that you're doing as a human being. I'm sure a lot of people are going to benefit from this discussion, from what you have just shared with us today.
You are welcome, and thank you for having me here in this space and having this conversation. I hope we'll have more conversations, or rather, I hope to hear more from you and the other scholars in the community.
Yeah, I think we really need to make that happen. I will do my best as well to get in touch with a lot of scholars, and then we just share ideas and have these discussions. I think it really is important. So yeah, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. And to our viewers, thank you again for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the notification button. You can also follow us on Twitter and like our page on Facebook. Until next time, it's goodbye for me. Goodbye.